Attention, fans of Unfinished Business Television, we're thrilled to announce our proud partnership with Super 7, the ultimate destination for collectors and pop culture enthusiasts alike. Visit super74.com/AJEPYX today. Use promo code AJEPYX, and let's keep the good times rolling here at Unfinished Business Television.
Hey folks, welcome back. And you are back with Unfinished Business Television. And this episode, we're gonna review a summer movie spectacular. We got all the big titles in this episode. So we hope you are ready for this. But first, I am Jeff Galshaw, your host, Unfinished B1 on most social media. And with me, as always, is my co-host and confidant, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
And if you're looking for a fresh summer blockbuster, my latest film, The Last Vendetta, will be out on Prime Video August 29th and on Tubi on September 12th, depending on when you're watching this.
Yes, definitely check that out. Now, we're going to start with the potatoes before we get to the meat this week. So, first of all, we are going to talk about the thriller Drop that was directed by Christopher Landon. This movie is about a woman who just got out of an abusive marriage and is a single mother, and she's a psychiatrist, and she finally decides to go on a date with somebody she's been talking with. And on this date, unfortunately, she's saying she's getting pranked in text, but it's really somebody who is threatening to kill her child and her sister if she doesn't, in essence, murder her date. And this person is watching her throughout this film. Now, let me preface this by saying this film was recommended to me by two people before I saw this film, one of which is my co-host, who said, it's decent. I sat there and watched this film, and I was like, okay, this is where we get demonetized. What the fuck? Because I was like, this film is booty. Because the first half hour, I am just like waiting for the film to begin. And then when I see the date, I saw the trailers. I know what the guy looks like. He is so uninteresting and dull. How is this her dream date? And he has dead eyes. You know, that's what they said about Tom Hanks' animated character in the Polar Express. Now I've seen it in a human. So that was how I felt watching it. Like, this was a film, I've told you, and on our live show, how wicked I was complaining the whole time I was watching it. I should have filmed myself watching it for the first time. That was how bad this felt. This is the second place where I was like, I should have had a camera crew filming me this. Because this film, I just detested the whole time. I was asking 20,000 questions. Like, this makes no sense. Why is this happening? It was stupid. And I usually like Christopher Landon films. That's why I was like, I can understand this from a concept point, like how this could work, but they really needed to make this a little bit more interesting. Or if you're not going to make it interesting, at least make it campy and, play into more of the humor of it. I mean, once it's finally revealed, it's like, really? Really? That's what this was all over? And I will admit, I might have been a little prejudiced watching this film because the suspect I thought the whole time was behind it was the black bartender. And then when it's revealed who it was, I was like, but don't kill her. She's the only person of color in this movie. So, that was the funnest time I had watching the film, where it's like watching my loyalties change watching the film. But other than that, I'm sorry. It's not as bad as The Old Guard 2, but yeah, I really didn't like this. I will at least say the lead actress did what she could, but the film was pretty much as bland as her dress was watching this film. Andre, since you were the one who recommended this movie to me, let me know why.
Well, I just thought that from a conceptual standpoint, it was constantly keeping you guessing. Like as you're watching her go into this restaurant and you're introduced to all these characters, the waiter, the bartender, the couple, you're kind of guessing who is it that's setting her up. And I'll admit, I thought it was the bartender too after a while before I agree that when they do reveal who it is that's setting her up and doing all these killings, it was a major letdown. It's like that's it. That's really what this all built up to. Not that I'm saying that the dude from It Ends With Us should have been the main villain, but it just would have made things a little bit more like just a nice little twist. Like maybe you thought it was one person and it was somebody else entirely. And you don't really get that. I think performances are fine. I like the visual of like when the glass breaks and everybody seems to be falling out of the building. That was kind of crazy. The back and forth with the son being put in danger and who was her sister or babysitter that's getting beat up by this guy that's essentially the one being hired to threaten their family life if she doesn't do what she's supposed to do. Um, yeah, again, passable, mild recommendation, but the twist just doesn't really work for me. I think he could have been a little bit more clever with it.
Yeah, because I've seen like many reviews saying, "Oh, it's like a modern day Hitchcock." Yeah, Hitchcock knows how to do tension. His director, unfortunately, was not that great with the tension. And I mean, watching the babysitter just get brutalized, this was sort of like, what was that movie? Was it Geostorm? Which was the one with Morgan Freeman as president and Melissa Leo just get? Yes, and no, where Melissa Leo is like the vice president and the terrorists just beat the shit out of her.
Oh, Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes, that's what watching those scenes with the babysitter. I'm sure Trump was jerking off to that. That's how badly they beat this babysitter in this movie. Yeah, I'm sorry. I give it no recommendation. I really did not like Drop. I'm sorry. You could drop this movie. Um,
Yeah, no wonder he lost Scream 7.
well, I don't think that was. I think that was more his choice than the studio. They weren't watching Drop like, what are we gonna do? you know. I think yes, if maybe the guys who made Scream 6 had made this would have at least been interesting. They know how to do tension. Sorry to compare two directors or three if you cats is their directing team. Next, we are going to continue with our small potatoes, and we're going to take a look at the film Opus, where Io Edebiri plays a reporter at a Rolling Stones type magazine. I'm like, hey, this is definitely taking us back. And where her and her boss are sent to this album listening party slash retreat by this pop artist who was like the biggest in the 90s and early 2000s, who became a recluse, kind of started a cult, and has now decided to make another album, played by, of all people, John Malkovich. And what happens on that weekend, we witness. Now, Andre, I'm gonna let you let's hear your review first. What did you think of Opus?
I think Opus had a good setup. It felt like it was going to go to Midsummer route, which sort of did. The celebrity worship aspect of it, even a little bit of the menu. Everybody wants to come out. They want to hang with this guy. They want to feel like they got the status and privilege until shit hits the fan for them. Um, I don't feel this film at all. Iola Barry's character was not interesting. Malkovich was just hamming it up with his sort of Johnny Depp like way that he comes about that turns sinister as this faded rock star. Um, some of the deaths you don't see coming, or at least you don't really like. There's stuff that I just didn't understand about this film, and then the whole twist at the end with her writing the book and capitalizing on her experience. Um, for A24 standards, this just sucked. I don't know what it is about it. And, all this creepy stuff that's supposed to be creepy, like cutting her pubic hair for whatever reason, I don't get it. Like, no recommendation for me. This was horrible.
See, I kind of differ all with you on this film. I agree with you. I think it has a great premise, but again, like you said, The Menu and all these other films about celebrity worship and that are dark comedies, they did it better and more original. This just feels like a copy of one of those films that had the potential to be right on side to side with them, but I don't know what happened. There's something just a little off about everything. And like you said, with John Malkovich, great actor, wrong for the part. The only time I really felt he was strong is in the after scenes. I felt like, okay, now John Malkovich is in the role. But I thought, you did say something interesting. If Johnny Depp had played this role, this movie would have maybe been raised at least a caliber. But like you said, I didn't get the deaths, they just seemed like they were making them up to be torturous, And then the twist at the end, that they're still out there. That just reminded me of The Strangers, that movie. Like, who knows when they're ready to strike? But saying that, maybe I thought that this was so far, other than the Bear, I think this was one of Io Atabere's better roles. I mean, she doesn't have much to do, but at least she's compelling enough that we care what happens to her character. Even though they set up this like little romance with with her male friend that really goes nowhere, that you think is going to be something but doesn't. And I mean, if you were going to go the route you did, fine, have Juliette Lewis in it, but then at least make the other actors more recognizable. Like that one older female, we don't even know what his beef was with her. She just seemed like a glorified extra in there. But even though her mother is the casting director for this movie, I wanted more of Amanda Mid Thunder in this film. Her like clearly like deranged in character. I was like, I kind of want to know more. She has like kind of a Aubrey Plaza like charisma but darkness to her that I'm like, yo, I want to see more of her in films. But like you said, the film just there's something, it's not charismatic. It feels like almost like it's trying to copy an A24 film. It's like Blink Twice is better than this film, but I put it side to side more with that film, with an interesting concept, but somehow failed. But at least Blink Twice had a better cast too, who fit their roles. I was excited to see Juliette Lewis in this film, but it's just like that's what she was here for, you know. It does have some interesting visuals. I will give it a mild recommendation only because I'd be like, this is a film I feel like somebody should watch, remake 10 years later, but better. Give it a David Lynchian vibe, maybe more, or play up the comedy part of it. Because almost this feels like a bad parody of an A24 film in certain ways. But yeah, I still give it a mild recommendation. And now we're going to give you something that you think will be meat, but is still really kind of a side dish. We're going to talk about Happy Gilmore 2, a film many of you have waited probably 20 years for this to be made. But keep in mind, Adam Sandler wrote this. It's a Netflix movie. And you know what happens anytime he makes a comedy for Netflix. This is the result you get. This film, as one of my friends who is also on TikTok, Adam Talks Movie, said, this should have been called Cameo, the movie. Because this film, I think, is like a Robert Altman film in the 90s, where it's just like, there's so many cameos in this film, and half of them are for no reason. Like, why is Eminem in this movie? you know, it's like, okay, you were in Funny People playing yourself. Why are you in this trying to play a character? You know, and watching this film, he wants everybody to remember how good Happy Gilmore was because he makes anybody who's living, he brings back for this film. Even if you had one line in this film, you are in this film. I'm surprised the girl whose chest he signed did not have a cameo in this film. pretty much. And if you forgot who they were, he'll flash back in the movie to remind you. Like, hey, remember the person who was his caddy who he tried to choke the first time? Well, he's back. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like it, and you people who are Bad Bunny fans, shame on you. You only like it because you like Bad Bunny. This movie was bad. It sucked. I'm gonna go that far. Yeah, whatever. I have no sense of humor. Look, I love early Adam Sandler, but this movie was not it. I will tell you, the only parts I found funny, John Lovitz, and I thought, oh, and when he's going to his happy place and he's like, oh, low cholesterol or sitting on the toilet watching TikTok or Reels, I can identify with that. I thought that was funny. Everything else was bad. Now Shooter McGavin's his like buddy. Chubbs' son, played by I don't know the comedian's name, but I'm like, the one time you could call Chris Rock, this is who you get. It's even Kevin Nealon's not funny in this. And since he put most of his family in this, does he have something against the guy who played the quarterback in The Waterboy? Because he's nowhere to be seen. But his friend with the wonky eye, he gets freaking close-ups. And what happened to his other friend, the one who starred in Grandma's Boy? He's not in it, but we get Nick Swardson for a scene. And then his youngest daughter plays his daughter, but his oldest daughter is his like AA buddy. And Ben Stiller, really? He's not funny in this film. And then, oh god, see, I can just keep going on and on about how bad this movie. Why is Travis Kelce in this movie? Um, I'm just like, this is like half these movies. Look, I can understand all the golfers cameos, even though I don't know who half of them are. But at least I understand them. And damn, Dennis Dugan got old. It's like he looks like the Crypt Keeper. No offense, Dennis Dugan. That's just how you look. It's like even the Mr. lady gets shouted out in this movie. I'm like, somewhere, why no David Spade? And who the fuck is John Daly? Why is this old man randomly living with him?
Why did Rob Schneider get a job in this?
Oh, come on. He's just riding a tricycle saying, you can do it in his happy place. They're still buddies, apparently, I guess. I'm just like, I think this is the worst film we're reviewing this week. I'm sorry. I had hope. I wanted it to be good. I love Happy Gilmore. That was the first Adam Sandler movie I saw in theaters. Be it a discount theater, but still, I really wanted to like this. I like it more than Billy Madison. But this was a piece of shit. Maybe not the big piece of shit, that's like stinky and you're like, how's it this long? But like, it is a piece of shit. Like, why is it so skinny? And why is it just like sitting there? It's not like smelly, it's just there. And maybe a little discolored. That's how I would describe this movie. Andre, what did you think of Happy Gilmore 2? No recommendation.
Well, like you, I wanted to go in liking it because I loved the first Happy Gilmore. I played that to death on VHS when I rented it. Was constantly rewinding the part with Carl Weathers when he sees the alligator head and falls out the window. I thought that shit was hilarious as a kid. This movie lost me the minute they killed Julie Bowen's character.
How they showed the first 5 minutes.
In the first 5 minutes, she gets hit with a golf ball by Happy, and that causes him to lose everything. And now we're falling into that legacy sequel trope of tearing down the hero to try to lift him back up. There were definitely funny bits, and I think Christopher McDonald steals the show up until he becomes friends with Happy. I thought that was totally out of character for Shooter McGavin. But other than that, and I thought the Safdie brother who plays the main villain, who's Benny, Benny Safdie, the guy that's running his own golf course. I mean, I thought he was okay, to be an antagonist. But yeah, I think it's way too littered with cameos, and some of these cameos are not funny. Every character that's sadly passed in real life, they have to have the son version of them show up, and that joke got a little old very quickly. Even with Eminem being the Joe Flattery character's son was funny, but only to a point. The wrestler MJF playing the muscle-bound son of Adam Sandler, he was miscast. I'm sorry to say, MJF is an asshole. That's his character in wrestling, and I thought when they announced he was gonna be in the movie, he was gonna be one of the competitors that he had to go up against, like the Becky Lynch character that's with Benny Saffery's crew. And to see that he plays one of the 4 sons, I mean, no, that's not MJF. That's not who he is. You have to make him an elitist asshole because that's how he is in real life. Um, and Sandler looks very tired. He has no energy, even when he's trying to be like the old school Happy Gilmore, where he gets angry and starts getting into hockey style fights with people. You just feel like he's kind of going through the motions. There's no spark. He's still likable, but just really anytime you see him, it's like, okay, let's move on. Let's get through this quickly. Like the part where he's at the golf course and Eric Andre has his cameo and he's trying to learn how to, play the way he used to, went way too long and just shows like exemplifying exactly how tired he was all throughout, just sleepwalking through this film. And so, yeah, I was very disappointed with it. They should not make a 3rd movie.
Oh, yeah, hell no.
Yeah, and I don't think Sandler should go back to any of his old material. If he's gonna be that tired. Somebody was even say, "Hey, she make a deal with Little Nicky." No, don't.
Why? Okay. I think the scene with Eric Andre was only extended because, hey, you got Margaret Qualley in this film somehow.
Or of all people, she had nothing else to do after Substance. This is the best she gets.
This is her vacation. I guess like, yeah, I'm in Happy Gilmore too. And hey, your writing partner Tim Herlihy, let's take his son from Do Not Disturb writers for SNL and have him in that scene for no real reason. And then I'm just like, this movie, Reggie fucking Bush, is part of these extreme golfers. Also, stupidest idea. This extreme golfing. I'm like, really? Like how the fuck do you even play this?
And then the fat guy that's supposed to be like this real golf icon that lives in his garage. I didn't know who he was, so
That's John Daly. That's who I'm like, what the fuck is this dude? And it goes nowhere except for him to share scenes with Steve Buscemi at the end.
yeah, they wasted Steve Buscemi here.
I'm like, did Steve I don't know, not bring a bottle to a dinner party or something? Because why did you give him this role? I would have rather him been Joe Flaherty's son getting thrown in the lake. Actually, that would have been a better fit. And I'm just like, and then the reason why these guys can swing is because the big joke is because somebody broke a bone in their asshole that gives them extra thing in their hips. Like, really? And Sandler, I'm sorry. You're not from Brooklyn. What's with the Timbs? You do not get that honor. So, yeah. I'm like, this shows he takes people, whoever he works with, joins his entourage. So now Benny Safdie is apparently part of entourage for future films. I guess Taylor Lautner got kicked out, and those other 2 friends of his. Whereas the guy with the wonky eye gets to stay. But would you recommend it at all?
I can't recommend it.
Thank God.
Stick with the original Happy Gilmore. This was a waste of time.
Yes, I agree. Like I said, this might be the worst film we review this show. Next, this is a film we probably should have reviewed a long time ago, but we were hoping to have a guest to come guest review it with us, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So we're going to review Sinners. I mean, by now most of you have seen it anyway. It's on HBO, but Sinners, I will let Andre go first with this one. Andre, what did you think of Sinners?
I'm with most of the critics. I thought it was arguably the best movie this year that we've gotten. Artistically well shot, performances all around, not just from Michael B. Jordan, who's obviously going to be amazing when he's working with Ryan Coogler, but Haley Seinfeld was sultry, and that was a rarity to see. Jack O'Connell being the villainous vampire type was excellent. The actress that's on Loki, that's in love with the one twin of Michael B. Jordan. Was
Woomy, I don't know her last name, but I know her first name is Woomy.
Yeah, was excellent. I love that whole sequence in the club when everyone's dancing, and it's got all those flashes of the past and the future. So all that stuff is just phenomenal to see. And maybe the only real downside is, yeah, you can look at it and say this is From Dusk Till Dawn. It's the same plot, but just in a period setting, and maybe some slight political angle there. Otherwise, this was definitely just Ryan Coogler's best in some. Not saying Black Panther was bad, but I mean, just in terms of an original picture, you're seeing why he's like the real deal, why he's got that big money, and yeah, high recommendation for Sinners. I don't know what else to say about it.
I agree with everything you said. High recommendation. So far, the best film I've seen this year. Um, what I will point out, like you said, Haley Seinfeld, this puts her in a new level of actress than we've seen her before. She's been good in other films, but she's mostly always played kind of more teenager roles. Now she is definitely an adult. And like you said, sultry. Woomy, I can't think of her name. This is like, even though she's been on Loki, this is her biggest role to date, other than in an excellent uh British film called His House, a horror film. She's really good in that film, and here she continues. I thought she was one of the biggest surprises of the film.
Oh, I forgot to mention, Delroy Lindo should win an Oscar.
Yes, I agree. The Oscar he should have been nominated for The Five Bloods. Here he gives excellent supporting, just somebody who's seen it all and been through it all, and telling the history, and all his blues you could feel he's lived before and knows exactly what type of person he's not gonna sit here and say, oh, I'm gonna try and do better. He's like, no, I'm a drunk. I spend money, I gamble, but I make it through another day. I think this is like one of his better roles. This is what I would like to think his role in Blade kind of would have been too.
Yeah.
Like, something that rich, because he does deserve all the work that he gets. I still think somebody owes him for Broken Arrow. So, him, if he died in movies like Glenn Turman, I'd be like, but at least he's working. you know, hey, Spike Lee saw something early on, and he's just keeps showing up and doing the job above and beyond. Um, the biggest surprise for me, look, I like Michael B. Jordan, but this is kind of like one of his best roles, and playing two roles in this film and making them so distinct. It, I think, really showed off his acting. Now, if only he'd stay away from IP movies, maybe we get more performances like this. Do you think it's maybe because he trusts Ryan Coogler, who kind of made him a star, more than he does other directors?
I do. That's what it is. They got that Scorsese De Niro relationship that's just so tight that they can't work without the other. At least on the Coogler side, it seems like he can't fully function unless he's got Michael B there, and he brings the best out of him. Not that the Creed movies are terrible, but you could see there's a quality drop because there's not a lot of that importance, not a lot of that gravitas that comes around when those two guys are together working together. And you could just see it. That's really what makes Coogler's movie stand out is he finds something magical in Michael B. Jordan that makes him compelling, makes you feel for him.
Exactly. I mean, even when they had the previews where Coogler was explaining different aspect ratios to the audience, I mean, he comes from a real place. He has that Oakland accent that makes him sound more like the type of person who an African American audience would know from the streets, and breaking it down for them, but so academically that I feel like they trust him more than, let's say, a black director who went to an Ivy League college. Maybe he's not as street as a Coogler would be. And again, the one thing I love about Ryan Coogler is he's such a film nerd, and you can see it in his work and all in his interviews. Like his next project is resurrecting the X Files, and like one of his favorite movies is Ikaru by Akira Kurosawa. stuff you wouldn't expect. And that's another thing that makes this film magical is the aspect ratios, the filmmaking, him knowing, how to shoot the film, which unfortunately a lot of directors can direct, but they don't know necessarily how to shoot, or they leave it up to their cinematographer. He knows what he wants, and you can see it on the screen. And I like that he involves most races. I know a lot of online, some Latin critics are just like, oh, there's a ripoff of uh From Dusk Till Dawn, but it's more cultural. And I also feel like they're might be a little sore because they were left out too. Because we have Native Americans in a scene. We have obviously Irish or white characters.
They're an Asian man.
Exactly. And woman, even though she ends up being like one of the characters, you're like, bitch, because of what happens. But, and the guy in the film, the Asian man, I, next to Russell Wong, that I'm like, finally, we're getting some charismatic Asians on screen, males who are like kind of sexy too,
Also forgetting the young guy that was the guitar player. That
Miles Caton or Catton?
Yeah, Miles Caton. This is like his first movie, and he was impressive.
Exactly. And his father is played by Saul Williams, who some of you might remember from Slam,
Yep.
the poet. So I just think this film is enriching in every aspect. I know there's some backlash because it's popular and most people like it, that, people must talk bad against it. It is worth it to watch it. It is worth just the experience. This is definitely a film that if you were lucky enough to see in a theater, that was a gift to you. Because even I've watched it again on, currently on HBO Max, and it's not as strong. I mean, it's still a good film. You still feel it, but it isn't as strong as when you watch it on the big screen with a crowd. There's just again, like Black Panther, there's the impressive action sequences, but also, especially if you're African American, there's a proudness you feel watching this film, you know, even if, the ending isn't the happiest. And I have to say, Jack O'Connell is having one of the best years ever. From this movie to 28 years later, he's in all the most memorable films of the year. So, high recommendation. Go out where you can see it. And I think most people will love this film. So now that was part of the meat, but now we got two big meaty films. So if this show goes over an hour, at least you know why. We're getting in depth in this bitch. So first we're going to talk about, out of these next two films, we're going to talk about Superman, directed and written by James Gunn. And there is so much to say about this film. I will say I'll take it. The first review. I will say I found this film very enjoyable. Again, I'm a mild comic book character movie comic book person, but I really enjoyed this film because this film felt more like the WB cartoons or animated versions of the film. So it's playful yet serious when it needs to be. I know the complaints. Yes, Superman keeps getting his ass kicked. And I feel like this was James Gunn's film to introduce us to his DC universe in general. That's why we get so many other heroes in this film. So it's not essentially a Superman film. And for all y'all people complaining, you've had how many Superman movies? Do you really need us to go paint by numbers again? It's like, who he is. We know where he came from. His story is the comic book George Washington. We all know the story by now. We don't need it reiterated to us. James Gunn, I believe, is married, correct?
Yes.
He put some hotties all through these movies. I'm like, even the engineer, who's one of the villains, I'm like, damn. And he's a fan of big butts. That's all the actresses in this film have sizable rears. You have a supermodel playing Miss Tessmacher. That is the one weakness of the film. I thought she could have been funnier, instead of just thirsty, And Jimmy Olsen is a Mac in this film. I'm like, Really? I mean, I know he must have really enjoyed Licorice Pizza because he gave the same actor kind of the same role, only as an investigative reporter. I don't know who the girl with the cleavage was in the scene, and I guess the newsroom scene, and I don't even remember the name of her character, but I'm like, she was eye candy. And then you have Wendell Pierce as, you know, what is the character?
Very white.
Perry White, iconic and straight to the point. And then you have, of course, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, who just is just a world class hater. But he's such a world class hater, you kind of like him. The only time I really didn't like him is when he sacrifices someone. That I was like, okay, now I can't be on your side. That was fucked up, you know. But other than that, I really enjoyed his character. I'm against the public. I'm like, Crypto or Krypton, whatever. He was annoying. I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't hate animals, but I'm just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We didn't need this much of them. Bradley Cooper. Uh, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Um, Superman's mom was, eye catching.
She was on Westworld.
Uh, yeah, I've seen her in many different things. I'm like, yeah, she's very attractive. I even remember her from, wasn't she in G20 like the opening scene? And
Yes, she was in G20.
see, I remember her from that. But Edie, I don't know how to say his last name, who plays Mr. Terrific, steals all his scenes in this film. And I feel like this was a comeuppance from when he's like one of the first people killed in First Class, the movie, as Darwin. So, like, fuck you, Kevin Bacon. I'm here now. Guy Gardner's, Green Lantern was hilarious in this film. Isabel Merced's Hawk Girl, I don't know if that was a youth thing or an eye candy thing. She didn't really have much to do, but she was interesting. She got to kill Netanyahu stand in this film because this film is political. So, but like in general, I have never found a James Gunn film I hated or really disliked. So he continues the tradition here. There's so much to talk to other than the stuff I'm just saying. I don't want to seem like a pervert when I'm talking about the attractiveness of this cast, but it is noticeable. But like I said, I really enjoyed this film. I really liked it. I'm not gonna say it's like the best film I've seen this year, but I can say I left out of the film with a smile, and I like the positivity involved in the film. And that is what Superman stands for, and all those Fox News people who are saying, oh, he's woke. No, he's just a decent human being. Remember what that used to be like? And those are the values of not only America, but of every human being should be. So I really enjoyed this film. And David Cornsweet, you get my seal of approval. In fact, we're going to cancel Dean Cain out. You can take his place in the Superman universe. Andre, what did you think of Nick? Andre, what did you think of Superman?
I think Superman accomplished what it needed to do, which I think was to make this the best Superman movie since the 1978 film and Superman 2, because Superman Returns, I think, started off really well, but it got very troubling halfway through it, especially the casting of Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane and other issues that movie has. It's sad. Man of Steel tried to be more darker, more aggressive. It ended up coming off very somber and downbeat. And I know there's still those Snyderverse fans that are butthurt about all of this rebooting stuff. And watching this movie, I'm like, thank God we got a decent Superman for once. That's not somber. That's not dark and dystopian, but very much, a little bit of Christopher Reeve, a little bit of the cartoons, and just reflecting the times that we're in right now, where everything is so divided, and having a hero that is of American values, that believes in truth, justice, and America way, believes in just being an everyday person to help, and yet you're being ostracized, especially when there's that message from his parents that gets uncovered. There's going to be more to that as this franchise goes, but I hear it's, they're not really turning back on that twist. I like the fact that right away it just jumps straight into the action with that caption of like 30 some odd years ago, 35 years ago, he landed on Earth. We don't need to know the origin story at this point. We get straight to the action. He's already a couple of years in. Let's go. And we have a universe where you don't have to be establishing every superhero. They're there. There's a Green Lantern. There's a Mr. Terrific. There's a Supergirl. They exist, and that's that. So I thought that was fantastic. And yeah, I liked David Cornsweet because he gives Superman that humanity that I think was kind of lacking in some of the other takes for some time. Especially, like seeing him fight the monsters and being very cheeky about it, not just being straightforward, like very up to do like Christopher Reeve, but just more like a regular guy. Like he's a fireman, he's a policeman, he's just doing his job. And I even like the bit when he's confiding in Lois while in the background there's this giant creature attacking this metropolis. The rest of the Justice League is trying to fight it off. And he's like, "Oh, they got it. I don't really need to." That to me made it so different. And they sort of explained the canon issue with showing Peacemaker's cameo and all with Lex Luthor's plot with the portals in that underground surface. That's going to be also another thing that they're going to play off of as they continue with this universe. Yeah, Nicholas Hoult was fantastic, doing his best Elon Musk, a little bit Elon, a little bit of Trump. And maybe the thing with the battleship type stuff, hit F4, F1, that got a little bit annoying, but I could tell you what they were trying to do there. Like he's acting like this is a freaking video game for him.
Mhm.
Rachel Brosnan, she didn't get a lot to do, but I thought she was the best Lois Lane I've seen in a long time. She reminded me so much of Margot Kidder. I mean, just that whole banter back and forth when she's questioning him as if they're doing a mock interview and he's just getting all defensive. To me, that's old school Lois Lane right there. And that's been sorely missing as well. Um, and yes, Mr. Terrific steals this movie, hands down. I feel like they thought Guy Gardner was going to do it. No, Mr. Terrific, that dude should get his own movie or his own TV show because that guy was just, I don't know, like I could have seen LeVar Burton do something like this back in the day. That's how cool he was. And I didn't find too much fault in it. I thought overall the movie was fine. Did I think it was perfect? Maybe not because I feel the superhero fatigue. But for what they were trying to do, they were aiming for this to be part of a younger crowd, a young crowd that watches the cartoons, and you're not trying to completely overhammer them with political messages, even though they're there, but just make it fun, make it entertaining, make it light, because that's what Superman is. So I'm not going to give this the highest recommendation. I'll just give it a straight recommendation because I think this is a good start for the universe that James Gunn is trying to build. And there's still more they can do to improve. I even felt Wendell Pierce was underutilized here as well as Perry White. I would have wanted more of him along with the other people working in the Daily Planet. But like I said, there's more room to grow and expand these people. You're going to see him in Peacemaker season 2. You'll see him in Supergirl. They've got a ways to go, but this is a good start to get away from the mess we've had for the last decade of DC.
Well, I was just wondering, like, who is Beck Bennett's character supposed to be in the newsroom? And
There's a lot of these characters from the comic books they lifted from, and knowing James Gunn, who's very much into that geek lore, I couldn't even tell you who half these people are. I got some of the references, but even something like the mass villain that they have working with Lex Luthor, and then we'll get into spoilers here. I mean, it's been out for a couple weeks now, but when he reveals himself to be a clone of Superman, I thought it was um not Brainiac. Even though,
Bizarro?
yeah, I thought it was Bizarro, but apparently it's not. But
No, it's Ultraman.
yeah, Ultra, but technically that's Bizarro in my view, so that throws me off. But again, that's James Gunn. He gets into that geek lore that maybe the casual fans don't know about.
Exactly. I like I said, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it's way better than, the mess I thought it was going to be, and a lot of people predicted that it would be. So it's nice to see James Gunn doing good and going the right way that many people can have faith in him. I mean, I know some people, are still complaining about this. And when it comes to the older Superman films, like again, Man of Steel, I didn't hate or anything. I actually enjoyed it, but I think the thing I remembered most is the cinematography and the score. Um, Superman Returns. Other than that plane crash sequence, the only other thing I also really remember about that is that I think Lois Lane should be in a coma because she had so many head injuries throughout that film, and really Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, but Parker Posey as Miss Tessmacher. And I did want to see these mutant toes that Jimmy Olsen says Miss Tessmacher has, and then what is it, Metaphismo? In this film, I remember from the comic books because of his purple and white look. So I was like, I didn't know the character's name, but I was like, oh, that guy's in it. Oh, I like this, you know. But like I said, I think I liked it maybe a little bit more than you because I give it a high recommendation. Um, I think it's a good film, and I think most people should see it on the big screen. And I enjoyed it more than I really expected to. Even my mother enjoyed it. I took her to see it. So for Superman, that is our review. And now we're coming to our final film of the show, the big film that at the time of this taping just came out last week. We are going to talk about Fantastic Four from Marvel. Is this Phase 6?
Yeah, this is Phase 6.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Phase 6, our entrance into it with Fantastic Four. Andre, since you're more of the comic book person and you saw it first, what did you think of Fantastic Four?
I felt the same way as I did with Superman. I thought it was just fine. It wasn't, the best Marvel movie I've seen, but not the worst. What I would say overall is you could feel the quality is starting to get better with the MCU because they really put their heart and soul into this and not just treat it as an afterthought. A lot of things that people complained about early on didn't end up being problems in my view. Pedro Pascal playing Mr. Fantastic. I think once you get past sort of his Matthew Broderick sounding voice and the fact that it is Pedro Pascal, good Mr. Fantastic, good Reed Richards, because he's supposed to be this brainy guy. He has a Mr. Wizard type of TV show going on. And I don't think they play him down. Like a lot of people say, oh, Sue Storm was the real leader. No, it was a family dynamic. There really wasn't like, one triumphing over the other. Everybody got their moments. And I thought he did a very good job playing what he needed to do. And Vanessa Kirby, who I knew was going to be great for Sue Storm, was fantastic in it. No pun intended. Um, you know, they Sue Storm was always supposed to be like a Jackie O type of personality. She's supposed to be somebody that you wanted women and young girls to aspire to be, and that's what they play up in the film. There's nothing woke about that. That to me is the character that was in the comic books, as far as I'm concerned. And having Julia Gardner as the female Silver Surfer, yeah, I know a lot of us would have wanted to see Norrin Rad, the one that was used in the Rise of the Silver Surfer, but I thought the dynamic that they had where we find out her backstory of how she sacrificed herself for a planet at the expense of destroying other planets with Galactus, and then tying that to Sue refusing to sacrifice Franklin, it's like, okay, now that makes sense. And that works for the story that they were trying to present. So they were really trying to do everything different from the Roger Corman movie to the ones that Tim Story did. And of course, that piece of shit Van Forstick by Josh Trank. It wasn't hard to top all of those movies. I mean, this is the best Fantastic Four film, period. Even the Galactus stuff I thought was phenomenal, finally to get him right. I thought they took him out a little too easily, but otherwise, I thought just the overall presentation of Galactus was spectacular to see. Um, I was half and half with Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm because there were times where I thought this is vintage Johnny Storm, and other times very neutered. Iban Makabaras, or I don't like gibbering his name, but the dude from The Bear was a good thing, a good Ben Grimm, because they didn't have to overplay like the fact that in the other movies he's like a tragic figure that wants to be human again. So, he accepts what he is, and that's that. There's only one scene where maybe he feels that regret, but otherwise he's just a jolly guy, just like in the comic books. Maybe the only problem was when he finally gets to say it's clobbering time, he says it while he's scared, not like defiantly. And that's the only drawback I see with the thing right there. um, I like the beginning of it where they show all their highlights of all the different villains they face. Paul Walter Hauser as the Mole Man.
Oh, yes.
Again, stealing the show. I wish there was more of him in there, but it was cool they didn't make him a flat out villain near the end. So that was awesome to see. But at the same time, Natasha Lyonne, that was a waste. She had nothing to do in this film.
Not really.
For somebody that talented, that's like a pretty big star right now, this is the best you're gonna get. I thought she was gonna be Alicia Masters, the puppet master's daughter. That would have made more sense, but yeah, no, they didn't do that. Um, Action scenes were decent. I love when they go to the Galactus area, whatever planet they go to, and then that whole escape fighting off the Silver Surfer, which was totally lifted from like 2001 Space Odyssey or even the original Star Trek movie. That was amazing to see. And that's one thing I wish I would have seen in IMAX. I saw this at Alamo. Um, so overall, I gotta say, high recommendation from the standpoint of a Marvel film that has real quality, not a lot of homework to do, and really the best of the Fantastic Four movies. I'm not gonna say I overly loved it. I don't know how many times I'm gonna watch it in later viewings, but again, this is a good start for where Marvel needs to go to improve. And I want to see more of these guys together because there's so many other villains that they have to face.
True. I mean, just like you said in the highlights, they just point out how many they've faced in the past. I agree with you when it comes to the Joseph Quinn. There's just something like bizarre about that performance where it's like it's not hitting me the way it should.
Yeah, he's like Elroy Jetson.
Yeah, it's just like, shouldn't you be more of a bad boy? I mean, I like this chemistry with Yvonne, the Ben Grimm. And I also like the adding that, how much of a good cook Ben is in this film. It's a minor detail, but at least it adds something. I don't know what was up with his weird rock beard towards the end.
No.
I was like, huh? How's that? Never mind. Vanessa Kirby, absolute fox. I thought she was great in this film. Now we know why she wasn't in that last Mission Impossible movie. She was entertaining here. Pedro Pascal did not bother me as Mr. Fantastic. I think what a lot of people are going to complain about is that you don't really get to see Mr. Fantastic really use his powers in this film. And that is the only thing I can say about the Josh Trank film is at least it showed like with his flexibility, he can change even his appearance, like Masquerade or somebody else. I would have liked to see that in, future films, even though here he's a celebrity. So why would he ever change? Though it did make me think it would have been an interesting choice if they had cast Matthew Broderick as Mr. Fantastic. I'm like, hey, you gave him Inspector Gadget. Why not? He needs something other than Ferris Bueller and War Games, and maybe Election to his resume. But like I said, it left me with a smile on my face. Well, I surprisingly enjoyed this more than Thunderbolts, but again, that might be because I didn't going in. I thought this was gonna be bad. Until you and other people told me this was good, I didn't even plan on going to see this in theaters. I have seen I've seen the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, and I saw the first, the one with Jessica Alba. I didn't see it in theaters, but eventually I saw it. And I was like, this is stupid, but it's okay. They seem to have a big play on showing the special effects. I've never seen part 2 with the Silver Surfer, though from what I've seen in previews and little scenes, and from other people who have seen it, that was the best part of the movie was the Silver Surfer. I didn't mind Julia Garner in this. I thought she was good. I was one of the few people not complaining about the female Silver Surfer being in this movie. I'm like, doesn't matter to me as long as there's a Silver Surfer. And I like that they showed you that you could feel the size of Galactus in this movie. Whereas, I know in the Rise of the Silver Surfer, he was played by a cloud voiced by Lawrence Fishburne. So it's like, that's not very terrifying. But here, you felt the size, the scope, him taking down these buildings. Again, the little romance. And anytime I see Paul Walter Hauser on screen, I am thankful because I love him as an actor on screen. Even you always feel like I like that he's a great actor playing these different characters. But even when you see him in interviews or on social media, he's always himself and he's always usually very positive. So and you could tell he's a fan of the same stuff that all the fans are a fan of. So I really appreciate that. And even here, you know, even though his role is small, he makes do with what he's given that you feel like he's an essential part of the film overall. And I really enjoy that aspect. I think casting helped a lot with this film because it's a lot of actors who you enjoy and who you feel a general warmth or you're a fan of. So I enjoyed that. And even though this is going to lead to Avengers Doomsday with that ending, I look forward to this film. I don't know how much of a effect Franklin's gonna have in the future. Their child, in this film. I remember him from the comic books, but I more remember him being a part of Power Pack. That little juvenile thing of the 80s, which I always say they should make a movie or a TV series up. Just put it out there. I'm sure like once Kevin Feige steps down in 2032. But I'm just saying, anybody wants to pitch it, go for it. Just don't go the way of Cloak and Dagger. But like I said, I recommend it. See, this is where we differ. I highly recommend Superman. For Fantastic Four, I recommend it. I like that they let Johnny Storm be kind of smart in this film. Even though he's usually the playboy. Like I said, it's generally likable. This is a movie I think you should see in theaters more than wait for it on streaming. But in general, I quite liked it. Matt Shankman from Just the 10 of Us, you did it again, man. And you obviously love of 50s and 60s television because, this is, I guess, supposed to be modern day, but also kind of in the past of another dimension, Earth 828. So I really like it in that kind of clue when they're at the UN and you see, somebody's not here from Latvia. Who could that be? Where it's like, oh, guys, just stop it. But like I said, I give it a recommendation. And that will do it for this episode. That ends this week's business. But as you know, we always have unfinished business. But I have to ask, have you guys seen Uncut Gems? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what a film recommendation do you have for the people out there?
Have you seen the documentary Billy Joel, So It Goes? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. And he's a great artist.
I agree. One of my favorites. I still have to watch it, though. And with that, we bid you adieu.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.